Welcome to Lesson 5, Identifying Supports to Achieve Goals. Are you ready to learn about some tools that can help you to achieve your behavior goal? Let's begin. But first, remember our rules. We need to have our listening ears turned on, our thinking brains turned on because we'll have some questions to answer. You have a few ways to respond. You can either point to your answer on the screen or say the answer out loud. When you see this emblem in the bottom left corner of the slide, you'll have choices to make. So you'll see places where you need to make an answer either with your voice or pointing. All right, you know the rules. Let's begin. So welcome back to your goal setting lessons. You are in phase 2 right now out of 3. Remember that part 1 is set a goal, part 2 is make a plan, and part 3 is adjust the plan. Say the 3 parts with me. Part 1 is set a goal. Part 2 is make a plan. And part 3 is adjust the plan. Say it by yourself this time. Great job. So what question do you ask yourself when you are setting a goal? Is it A, what is my goal? Or B, what is my plan? Make your selection now. If you said A, what is my goal? You are exactly right. If you said B, what is my plan? Change your answer. The question you ask yourself when you're setting a goal is, what is my goal? So now we're working on part 2. Remember I said you're in part 2. You've already completed part 1, set a goal, and now you're halfway through part 2, make a plan. Soon you'll be moving into part 3, adjust your plan. What question do you ask yourself when you're making a plan? What is my plan? The question you ask yourself when you're making a plan is, what is my plan? What question do you ask yourself when you're making a plan? Is it A, what is my plan? Or B, what is my task? Make your selection now. If you said A, what is my plan? You're exactly right. Nice job. If you said B, change your answer now. Because the question that you ask yourself when you're making a plan is, what is my plan? A goal is something that we want to achieve or a target to meet. Say the definition of a goal with me. A goal is something we want to achieve or a target to meet. Say it by yourself this time. Nice job. So you have set your behavior goal at school. Your goal is to be a responsible student by following directions and doing work quickly, quietly, with good quality, without disrupting the class. Say your goal out loud. I will be a responsible student by following directions and doing my work quickly, quietly, with good quality, without disrupting the class. This is a great behavior goal. But today we're going to learn how to make a plan so that you can achieve your goal. So far, you've identified a few barriers that may get in the way of achieving your goal. Remember, your goal is to be a responsible student by following directions and doing work quickly, quietly, with good quality, without disrupting the class. And a barrier that may get in the way of that is to make silly jokes and act silly sometimes, or maybe rather be listening to Chromebooks and music. You also identified ways to remove the barrier. If the barrier is that you're sometimes making jokes and acting silly, you should be a responsible student, knowing that there's a time and a place for making jokes and acting silly. We want to really embody the student, a good student, regardless of whichever barrier it is that you think is most important. The barrier of making jokes and acting silly addresses the function of your behavior. Remember that. Next, let's think about when you want to achieve the goal. So we're looking at the month of January because that's the month we're in right now. And the soonest that we would be able to start this plan is today, January 17th. By making a timeline for a plan, you can plan for when you want to start working on a goal and when you will achieve your goal. So let's say if we started today, the 17th, then you work for 5 days on this. Obviously, you'll have a little bit of a disruption because you have Martin Luther King holiday on Monday and 2 teacher work days. So if you start today, you have today and then next Thursday and Friday, and then 3 days the next week. So by the time we meet on the 29th to evaluate for lesson 7, you will be you will be ready for reviewing your progress and seeing how close you are to meeting your goal. It's time to start. So next, it's time to choose a tool that's going to help us to be successful with our goal. The first tool that we could use is called a cue card reminder. The definition of a cue card reminder is a symbol of something that has a special meaning for us, and it's placed where we can see it frequently. So let's say if our goal is to begin working immediately and continue working until the task is complete, you might know that this should indicate every time you see it that you get started with your work right away. Keep working until the task is complete. If you get stuck, you can ask for help, or when you're finished, you can take a break. So this is a cue card reminder. Typically, it's associated with a goal that you're working on, and it has a special meaning for you. The second type of tool that you could use is called a behavior self-monitoring checklist. This is really effective when you have multi-components of a goal that you're working on. So what happens is you have this self-monitoring checklist with a couple of items that you're looking for and scores to receive if you've met them. So a 2 is kind of like average, 3 is better than average, and 1 is you got some work to do. Okay, so which tool would you use to meet your goal? Which tool is the most appropriate according to the goal that you have set? Is it 1, the cue card reminder, or 2, the self-monitoring checklist? Make your selection now. If you said 2, the behavior self-monitoring checklist, you're exactly right. This is associated with your goal. Your goal is multifaceted, meaning that there's a lot of checklist items to deal with, but you also have a rating score to rate how well you are meeting all of these checklist items. So if I read these checklist items to you, I'm prepared with all the materials for the lesson, and I've cleared my desk of unneeded materials and removed things that may distract me. I'm sitting up straight, sitting quietly, looking at the teacher or at your assignment, paying attention, following directions to show that I'm ready to learn. I'm not talking to other students. If other students just try to distract me, I will ignore them and stay focused on my work. I find an effective way to manage conflicts, and I respect my teachers and peers. I raise my hand to be called on, or comment, or ask a question, or to leave my work area. I ask questions, and if I don't understand what's being taught, then I can also start work right away and complete the assignments when they're given. So you have opportunities to do this during first, second, and third periods. You have the opportunity to score as high as 3 each time. That means the highest score you can get is a 3. You have 5 chances to complete that throughout the period. And there are 3 class periods per day, which means 3 times 5 is 15, and 15 times 3 is 45. You can score a total of 45 points per day on this checklist. And here's what a 3 means. Better than expected, 2 means expected, and 1 means you got work to do because it's less than expected behavior. So let's start with what we hope to see. You're doing everything that's listed down here independently. The teacher may have to tell you 3 times to do the task. Better than expected. You're doing this task independently, and the teacher may have to tell you less than 3 times to do the task. If you score a score of 1 and it's less than expected, it means you're not doing this task independently, and the teacher may have had to tell you more than 3 times to do the task. So what we really hope to see is that you can score at least a 2, because a 2 is what we expect to see. You may need to be told a few times to do things. Hopefully not. You have the chance to be better than that. So I hope that you strive to be better than what's expected. Be better than what's expected. Okay. If your goal is to get at least all 2s. And what that's going to look like next is, let's say you scored all 2s and you received a score of 30 points. You would then use a graph that I've provided for you and graph your point according to which day it is you're on. So let's say if it's today, then your point would be right here. 30 points, awesome, great job. If you scored less, maybe you scored 15 points, maybe you scored 22 points, it'll be somewhere between 20 and 25. Your teacher can help you with graphing this as well. But this is a really good way to see data as a trend. And I will be able to track your progress as well. You want to try to do 30 points. You want to try to see your level at about this place 3 out of 5 days that we're working. So if we're working for 5 days straight, 3 out of those 5 days, I would like to see it at 30 points or higher. Okay, let's review everything we've talked about so far today. First of all, what is your goal? Remember your goal at school? Say it with me. I will be a responsible student by following directions and doing my work quickly, quietly, and with good quality without disrupting the class. And now we have a way to measure how to do that. Also, what tool will you use to achieve your goal? Was it the cue card reminder or the self-monitoring checklist? Say it out loud, 1 or 2. Self-monitoring checklist is most important because when we are trying to be a responsible student, there are a lot of things that go into that. So we're using our checklist and a point system that's associated with that. Okay, we'll review this a little bit more tomorrow on our next time to kind of refresh. Our next session together will be on Thursday of next week. So great job today, and let's get started with mapping out your behaviors and graphing your behaviors and monitoring your behaviors so that you can achieve your goal. Go ahead and take your SDLMI probe next.